Hey guys, this is Vol, and welcome to my coverage of the Fields of Blood, also known as the GCon event in Auckland, New Zealand for Warhammer Fantasy Battles that I was competing in. I'll have some battle reports for you guys shortly, but I want to start off with a tour of the armies that were on display during the event. And we're going to start here with Josh Warren. This is a buddy of mine who you've seen actually playing against me in some of the battle reports I've done. He's got his Orcs and Goblins army here on display, and I actually voted for him in terms of the best painted army at the event. You can see it's very nicely done, a very nice display case. Everything's finished. Everything's finished to a very high standard, and there's a lot of creativity in the list. It's very colourful, and he's done a lot of conversions and little unit filler things and so forth. So looking very nice there. Next picture will show you a bit more detail on the army in general. He's got these little snotlings and the unit fillers there. He's got a privateer press miniature as the giant. He's got a fire troll standing in his unit filler, and the savage orcs in the far background, and of course his wyverns looking just as good as usual. And all the little mushrooms around his display case are looking very cool as well. So props to him. Going to the next photo, you've got a Dark Elf army here. It's quite a dusky, sort of darkish colour scheme, typical purple Dark Elves, but the finish on these models is very subdued and very shadowy, and it really has quite a professional touch to it. Very nice looking army. I couldn't really paint miniatures using Citadel paints and make them look this way, so I don't really know how people manage to do it. Maybe it's a different different paint range, I suppose so, but things looking very nice. Go to the next picture, you can see a bit more detail on some of the miniatures. A very tough looking Dark Elf army too. It's got one of just about everything that is good in the Dark Elf army, although there's a Cauldron of Blood there instead of the Shades, so I think that'll be the main difference between the... I think Shades generally are one of the big red flags in the Dark Elf army when you're looking out for them. But this one does look very good, as I'm sure you'll agree. Next photo, this is actually my personal favourite army at the tournament, although I couldn't vote for it because the voting for best presented army was only opened up to 8 armies picked by the tournament organiser, so it wasn't a matter of, you're showing up and people might vote for you if you're lucky. Only the best 8 armies were selected, and then you go on to vote for those ones. But this army is definitely me. It's I wish I could swap my army for this army. It looks really cool. I love it how he's got tons of miniatures from other ranges to represent his horrors and his demonettes and all the conversions and stuff. It looks like quite a cool army. He's managed to get a lot of points into troops rather than characters. He's used the circular movement tray things, the Lord of the Rings style trays, and that looks awesome. The Furies look great. Going to go to the next photo so you can see a bit more detail on his blood letters and so forth. These winged things in the bottom right are being used as screamers. And just in general, a really cool looking army. He's obviously got a Khorne Herald and a Juggernaut in the middle there, but there's a little woman riding on it, just because that's the theme of the army. It's a very feminine sort of demon's army, and I really like it. I think it's awesome. Next picture, this guy is actually running a Warriors of Chaos army, but he's using this sort of Greek mythology theme to it. He's got miniatures from some other range, and they're representing his Warriors of Chaos here. He's got Marauders, Warriors of Chaos by the looks, some Knights, Chariots. Looking very, very cool. Going to the next photo, you can see a bit more detail on some of his characters and units here. And as you can see, this is a very unique looking army. You wouldn't really find anybody else showing up at a tournament with an army like this, because GW doesn't really make any of the miniatures that you can see here. And I just think that's the way to go. If you look to the next photo, you can see his Demon Prince. Big guy with the wings, looks like a big barbarian, but he's got a cycloptic hat type thing, and it looks really cool. Very striking army on the tabletop, and really cool guy as well. Next picture, this is Brian Osborne. I played him a few weeks ago at the South Auckland Wargaming Club. Managed a pretty major victory against him. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the army, and he's painted his army in a really nice textbook style. If you opened up the Wood Elf army book, you would see that these miniatures are painted in a very similar way, and I guess that gives him a good reference point for it, and he's able to make his models look very professional, and they're very cleanly painted. You don't really see errors and stuff if you look up close. Going to the next photo where you can see, it's very nicely detailed. Everything's nice and polished and finished, and this one looks really good on the tabletop when the battle's raging on. Next pick, this is Phil Cummins, who won the Best Presented Army for the previous tournament, TS2, and he often wins these best painted and presented army awards. As you can see, he's got a big display case full of trees, but it looks like there are more trees than there actually are, because half of those trees are actually Dryad miniatures. If you look close, you can see the bases in there. and very thematic, very wood elf. He's done everything correctly in terms of presentation here, in my opinion. It's a very forest spirit themed army. Even the Way Watchers and so forth are painted with green skin, just to give the impression that the whole army is just these spirits coming out of the forest, and I think that is very, very cool stuff. Going to the next picture, you can see a bit more detail on these dryads and Way Watchers and the big treatment in the background. Really well executed. So kudos to him for completing that on time for the tournament. Well done. Next picture, this is the army which many people feel are going to win the tournament outright. This is Gob-tonian. Goblins mixed with Bretonians. This is Simon from the Wargaming Club that I attend, and I haven't actually played Simon before, but I'm looking forward to giving him a game sometime. This army's been advertised on places like warseer.com and various other places on the internet, and he's done a bit of PR work for the army. Everybody's heard about it, and you kind of get a lot of attention when you show up to a tournament with an army like this. It looks very cool. It's got a really cool theme. It's full of conversions. It's very creative, and it's very well executed as well. So wouldn't be surprised if he actually wins the best presented army of the entire tournament, just based on how he's done with this whole thing. It looks really good, and it really works. Next picture just shows you a bit more detail on that. He's obviously got a conversion there, it's a Vargolf mixed with a Wyvern, mixed with some other lizardman parts, I think. But you've got the Gob-tonian Lord with the Squig Riders in the background, Squigasus instead of Pegasus. Grail Knights are actually fanatics. The Knights of the Realm are just goblins riding wolves. And generally looking really cool. He's even got the Trebuchet in the background manned by goblins, so that's really cool stuff. Next picture, this is a really cool Tomb King's army, which I've got a couple of pictures of. He's used a lot of cavalry in this army, and he's got no chariots, so it's a really weird army, but the centerpiece is that big elephant. If you go to the next photo, you can see this elephant. I think he's using this to represent a bone giant. One can only assume that this is a giant rather than a chariot, but it looks